Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes.
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And after the Philadelphia Union's huge win against DC United last Saturday, the Union finally returned home after 14 days to take on the Colorado Rapids, a team that they have not seen since 2019, in a game that ended 1-1 last in Subaru Park, with Sergio Santos scoring the lone goal for the Union. But here we are to preview yet again another game. And yes, once again, doing a match preview without a guest. And you guys know how much I hate doing these episodes where I would much rather bring on a commentator, an expert that covers the opposition more than watching YouTube highlights or looking up stats. But yeah, that's exactly what you're going to get this episode, is a whole bunch of stats from me. And because of that, I'm going to try my best to keep this episode as short as possible. Because like I told you guys last episode, like I've been saying on social media, Sunday, August 28th at 8 p.m., I'm going to be going live on Twitter Spaces for episode 200. And it's so crazy to think that I'm already at 200 episodes for the podcast, for covering Philadelphia Union. And I was also thinking about this the other day, where I've done, I think, 350 episodes. Might be a little bit more. I have to go back and see how many podcasts I've done when I was covering the Premier League and the Champions League. But yeah, I mean, by far, ever since I switched to Philadelphia Union, I've done more podcasts covering the Union than I have the Premier League. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't have it any other way. And it's just wild to me to think how 200 episodes absolutely flew by. And I know when you guys are listening to this episode, you guys will see as the title, it'll say episode 198. And you'll say, well, how can Sunday be episode 200? Well, like I said, I think on Twitter and also on the last podcast, I'm going to record my match review of this Colorado game. And then, again, at 8 p.m. on Twitter Spaces, going to go live. And we'll talk about that Atlanta United game that's coming up on next Wednesday. But honestly, like, I want all of you guys that have ever been a guest on this podcast, that goes for commentators too, because we all know that the commentators I've had on the podcast, they're still listening to the podcast. So thank you to each and every one of you guys for listening. But even if you guys have never been on the podcast before, but you guys listen, yeah, I would love to have you come on Twitter and preview the Atlanta game. Just get your thoughts out, how the Union have done so far in 2022, what your expectations are going forward, or whatever you guys want to bring up. If you guys, it's your show. Like I said, this podcast started with fans coming on the podcast, and I definitely want episode 200 to continue that, because I've never went away from having fans on this podcast, because I always want to give you guys a place where you can voice your opinions. And we all know we have different opinions, and you guys might not agree with me with a lot of my takes on the Union, and that's fine. But again, this Sunday, August 28th, 8 p.m., and I'm sure I'll plug it again at the end of the podcast, and I'll plug it again on the review episode, because really, I want as many people ever coming out on Twitter Spaces. Even if you just stop by and say hi for a minute and then dip out, that is fine. Definitely want to have the biggest Twitter Spaces I've ever had, and hopefully you guys can come out and talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. But as I said, this is a preview for the Colorado Rapids game. And as I always start my preview episodes, which I don't think I've done one in a while, but that's okay. It's been hard to try to get commentators on here the last couple of weeks, especially when you play it twice in 1 week, and those guys and girls are always traveling so much. So try to get them midweek. It's tough, and I definitely tried, and it's okay. We're here to try to preview Colorado the best we can. So Colorado, they took on Houston Dynamo last weekend, and that game ended 1-1 with Lalas Abubakar scoring for Colorado and Sebastian Ferrer scoring in the 95th minute for Houston. Also to note, Brian Acosta of Colorado got a red card in that game, so he'll miss the game against the Union this weekend. And there's a whole bunch of injury reports to tell you guys about for Colorado. We'll talk about all that here in a little bit. But this game against Houston, and it's a game that went back and forth. Both teams try to hit each other on the counterattack. And Jim Curtin was asked about, going back and forth in his press conference today. We're recording this podcast on August 25th on a Thursday, and I'll play that clip here towards the end of the podcast, I think, where Jim Curtin's talking about we can't have it back and forth. But yeah, that's exactly what this Houston and Colorado game was, back and forth. Both teams in that game had 9 shots. Possession was pretty much 50-50. We saw a lot of bad passing, but the one thing that stood out to me is both teams love to play the long ball over the top. And especially Colorado, they would play the long ball to the left side of their field and have Jonathan Lewis always cut in inside. He would always want to cut in with his right foot, get a shot off, which he got plenty of shots off, but none of those shots really troubled Clark, the goalkeeper, Steve Clark, for Houston. And this is a game that, honestly, Colorado should have won because I don't think Houston really troubled that defense of Colorado often enough. And we're getting into the goalkeeper here in a bit because when I was looking up stats and everything, William Yarbrough has regressed tremendously this season in MLS. And he's the reason, in my opinion, that Colorado didn't get all 3 points in this game. But yeah, I mean, if this is a game where you guys have ESPN Plus and you guys like rewatching games, this is a game that you guys definitely did not want to watch. But at the end of the day, it's a huge 3 points loss for Colorado. Houston are fighting just like Colorado to get into the playoffs, where you look, Colorado were flying last season, getting the number 1 spot in the Western Conference, and now Colorado's sitting 11th this season while Houston's sitting 13th. And yeah, it's a huge point for Houston, but it really feels like 3 points lost for Colorado. And I don't have too much more to add for this Colorado game because, again, I don't want to speak on a team that I'm not that confident on. Yeah, most of this episode is going to be stats. And I'll go ahead and start bringing up stats for William Yarbrough, the goalkeeper for Colorado, where you look, last season, he was, in my opinion, a legit top 5 goalkeeper in MLS, and he is not having the same season for Colorado, where last year he was tied for 3rd in goals against per 90 minutes with .97. He had the 4th most saves in MLS with 107, and he had the 3rd best save percentage of 77.5%. And this season, William just seems like he's regressed, like I mentioned, and it's not even like, just a little step. It's a massive drop-off. He's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why Colorado aren't in a playoff spot right now, why they're in 11th place. Where you look, his goals against per 90 is 1.45. That is terrible, which is the 15th most this season in MLS, where he sits at number 12 in MLS with saves with 67, and he has a save percentage of 68%, which is tied for the 17th most in MLS this season. I mean, you go from a goalkeeper that's in the top 5 in saves and save percentage and goals against per 90 minutes to a goalkeeper that's either at the midway level or below the drop. And I try to look up so many stats, and that's why I wanted to get somebody in here from Colorado to explain to us why William Yarbrough is having such a terrible season where, like I said, last year he was a legit top 5 goalkeeper in MLS, had a career year in MLS with Colorado. And then this season, he looks like a completely different player. And he's also in the bottom 30 percentile for post shot expected minus goals allowed. And there's a reason why I do not go over advanced goalkeeper statistics on this podcast. And that advanced metric that I just told you guys is one that I don't understand a lot, and it took me a lot of research to really understand what that means. And so, post shot expected goals minus goals allowed is basically, if the goalkeeper has a positive number, then that means that they're an above average shot stopper. And then the PSXG is the expected goals based on how likely the goalkeeper is supposed to save the shot. And so I probably confused so many of you guys with that because, again, these are stats that really confuse me. And if I'm doing a terrible job explaining it, I can definitely message you guys on Twitter where to read up on this. But basically, if you have a positive number in both of those stats, then that means you're a above average goalkeeper. But anything that's in the negatives, you're not good at all. And like I said, Williams in the 30 percentile, which is terrible. And I would love for somebody to tell me why he's struggling this season to save shots. And for you Union fans out there, or just MLS fans in general, it would be easy for you guys to say, oh, well, Austin Trusty isn't with Colorado anymore, so that's why Williams struggling. But I looked it up, and Colorado are actually 3-2-4 since Austin moved to Arsenal in the summertime, which we all know he's on loan at Birmingham City, playing fantastic so far with Birmingham. Could he potentially be a late call-up to the USMNT's roster for Qatar? I think he has a ways to go, but he's playing a lot better than I expected him to be playing for his first season in England. But like I said, Colorado are 3-2-4 since Austin moved from Colorado to England. And they still have Danny Wilson and Lalas Abubakar. And both of those guys are more than capable center backs in this league. And Austin only played 16 games for Colorado this season. They were rotating between him, Danny Wilson, and Lalas Abubakar. So, yeah, I don't think it's as easy as saying, oh, well, Austin Trusty's not there, that's why he's sucking. It's not the case at all. Like I said, they're 3-2-4. They only have 2 losses since Austin's moved on to Arsenal. But for whatever reason, he's just been a below average shot stopper. And if you're a goalkeeper, you want to be either one of two things. If you're both, that's excellent. But I feel like today's soccer teams want to see goalkeepers be good with the ball at their feet, distribution out of the back. Where, yeah, if you're a good shot stopper, that's great. Andre Blake's a great shot stopper. But, Williams not great at distribution or with shot stopping. And, yeah, he's a big reason why Colorado are struggling this season. And when I talk about my keys to the game, he's definitely going to be one of my 3 keys to the game for the Union to take advantage of how to get 3 points this weekend. And then we were just talking about the center backs of Colorado. When you look, all of last season, they only gave up 35 goals, and they've already given up 40 goals this season, and they've only played 26 games so far this season. So can you argue the defense is bad? I don't think so. I really don't. I think what it comes down to is it's just terrible goalkeeping, where Colorado is supposed to have expected goals given up of 33. And like I mentioned, they've given up 40 goals this season. And what does that fall on? That falls on terrible goalkeeping. And yes, your center backs can be in bad positions. You could not shut down the opposition fast enough. But when you look at shots against, shots on target, Colorado averages about 4 shots on target given up a game, which means every 1 out of 4 shots on target against Colorado is a goal. And It's just not been good enough for Colorado in the goalkeeping department. And those 40 goals they've given up so far in 26 games, that's the 10th most in MLS this season. So yeah, it's not been good. And I was like, okay, well, is this really because the defense is bad, or is it really because Williams bad? And it's not the defense because the stats back it up. Where Colorado, they have the fifth most clean sheets in the league at 7. They have the second most headed duels won, 57. They're great in the air. 16 fewest shots on target per 90. Like I told you guys, 4. I mean, when you're only averaging 4 shots on target per game, you're doing something right defensively. And when you look at the expected goals against, they're at the 8th fewest with 33.8%. So those 4 stats right there tell me everything I need to know that the defense is doing what they're supposed to do. It's just they can't do anything in the goalkeeping department. And if it sounds like I'm being repetitive, yeah, maybe partially I am. But I'm really trying to beat it to you guys that William Yarbrough is not a good goalkeeper. And for any Colorado fans that may or may not be listening to the podcast, I'm sorry that I'm dunking on your guy. And maybe you guys feel the same way that he's let you guys down this season. But the stats would back it up that Colorado would be in a playoff spot if it wasn't for the poor goalkeeping they've got this season. They've played on the road this season in 12 times. They've given up 27 goals and only scored 14 on the road. And they only have 6 points on the road this season. I mean, it's not been good enough at all for Colorado on the road, which makes me feel good that, okay, this is a game that the Union should win. But I don't know. It's something about the Union in the past playing down to their opponent where we all feel confident that they should get all 3 points. And then it doesn't happen because they play down to the opponent. And the only time that that's really happened, in my opinion, this season is against Chicago when we were away. Because when we took on Chicago at home, yeah, the Union made easy work of that. When they had Houston come to town, you felt like that should be a win. It was a 6-0 win. DC, 13-0 on aggregate. Both of those games you should have won. And so, other than that Chicago game, I feel confident that the Union don't typically play down to their opponent. And the Union definitely got to make sure they don't play down against Colorado this weekend. And again, I'll play a clip here in a bit about Jim Curtin talking about, yeah, we can't play down to the opponent. But real quick, I want to go ahead and look at Colorado's attack. And they're right in the middle of the pack in terms of goals scored with 37. Diego Rubio is having a career year with Colorado, leading the club with 12 goals. Jalcy Zardes is at 7 goals with Colorado this season. Great pickup there from Colorado. And you guys remember, I've said it a lot on this podcast where when Columbus made Jalcy available for trades, I said he needs to go to Colorado. This would be a fantastic pickup for them where, yeah, they struggle to score goals. And to see him scoring at a better rate than he was with Columbus in his last season, yeah, they feel like they got a good deal. And again, they're out of the playoff line, but when you bring in a national team player, a player that's won MLS Cup, a player that has playoff experience, this is a great player to bring in if you're Colorado. And when you go ahead and look at what Colorado did last season, since we compared their defense from last year to the defense this year, where they've given up more goals this year than they did all of last season, they scored 51 goals last season, where they had 18 different players score goals, where this season they've only had 11 players chip in. And like I said, adding Zardes was huge and a great pickup. And if they get into the playoffs this season, I think he's a player that they definitely got to rely on to, push them past the first round, unlike last season. But I do think it is a little bit of a blow where I was just talking about they had 18 different players last season contribute with goals where they're only at 11. Dominic Badji, who is now with Cincinnati, he scored 5 goals last season for Colorado. And he was always a good option to come off the bench. He's a player that can make a difference. And I thought he was a huge loss for Colorado, where, yeah, Cincinnati paid him a little bit more than what Colorado were willing to offer. But to lose a player that scored you 5 goals coming off the bench last year, yeah, that hurts a little bit. And then you go ahead and look at, and then Andre Shinashiki, who they traded to Charlotte this season. He has 5 goals this season with Charlotte, which is his most since 2019 with the Rapids when he scored 7 goals. And so I know that, yeah, he wasn't getting it done. Andre wasn't getting it done with Colorado this season or the last couple seasons. And so that's why they were okay with moving on from him. And yeah, he probably needed a change of scenery, just like Jossie probably needed from Columbus. But still, when you move on from two players that give you options off the bench, that is a big blow. And I was looking at this when I told you guys that Colorado have only had 11 players contribute with goals this season. I was curious where the Union stacked up with that. And, other than DC, Cincinnati, and Houston, the Union have only had 10 players this season contribute with goals. They're tied with Dallas and Sporting Kansas City with that. And does that concern you guys a little bit if Daniel Gazdag, Julian Kranz, or Mikael Ur, if those guys aren't getting on the score sheet? Do you guys feel confident that the Union can have somebody else contribute? I mean, I do know the last 5 games that the Union have played at home, they've had 5 different goal scorers that haven't been Mikael, Daniel, or Julian, which is good. You'd like to see that. But yeah, to only have 10 players contribute towards goals this season, and I get it, the season's not over yet. Jacob Glesnes still owes us a banger, which he gives us once a year. Kai Wagner's added goals in the past, hasn't added a goal this season. It's come close. Leon Flock scored last season, hasn't scored this year. I know some of you guys may chuckle at that and say, yeah, you expect Leon Flock to score a goal? You guys heard me a couple episodes ago defending Leon Flock's offensive production this season. I wouldn't put it past Leon to at least contribute 1 goal this season. The Union's Jesus Bueno has 6 goals, the leading goal scorer with U2. Jim Curtin mentioned today in his press conference that, yeah, they've taken notice, the first team's taken notice of what Jesus is doing with Union 2. And they definitely want to give him his chances to play with their first team. But Jose Martinez is in his way. So it's hard to really give him any minutes with the first team. And then the Union go out and sign Jeremy Raffanello to a homegrown contract, who was playing with Red Bull's second team, and he was their leading goal scorer. And I know you can definitely make the argument, yeah, it's the second division. It's not the top division. They're not scoring against people in MLS. And so how can you expect them to contribute to the first team? But, they have players I feel like could score, but they just haven't yet. And we've seen, like I said, Leon Flock scored last season. Jose Martinez hasn't scored this season. I don't think he's ever scored with Union, right? You guys would be able to figure that out faster than me right now. But I believe Jose Martinez is yet to score a goal for the Union. So I don't know. I think the Union could have some players contribute that haven't contributed yet. I don't think they're finished the season with only contributions from 10 players. But, at the same time, season is getting short, and it does make you wonder if your top trio of Daniel, Mikael, and Julian don't score. Do the Union have any offense? But the one thing about Colorado, they're a team that loves a counterattack, and with Michael Barrios, who used to play for FC Dallas, I think the Union are definitely going to have to contain him for this game. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say about the counterattack that Colorado brings in this match.
When you think of counterattacking, instantly you go to Barrios, a player like Barrios, who hurt you for so many years in Dallas and now is doing it in Colorado, where if he gets out in space, he can be a killer. They now have Jossie Zardes running in the box. Rubio, a player that's been severely underrated and is so efficient in his goal scoring with minutes played. It's incredible. So they have some really, really strong attacking options. A dangerous team, again, one that we respect a great deal. Lewis is a great transition player as well. So again, they're going to be organized. They're going to be tough to break down. But certainly we do not, and I say this almost every week, we do not want it to turn into an end-to-end track meet where they get a chance, we get a chance. We're not built for that. We're built to be organized, to be stable, and when we do get chances, be clinical with them. So that's our goal. That's the plan going in. But we recognize that won't be easy. Obviously they have a top player in Acosta that's suspended as well, so we catch a break there. But they have a strong roster, and I'm sure they'll replace it accordingly.
And there it is, Jim Curtin talking about not going end-to-end in this game, which is what happened in the Houston and Colorado game. It's how Colorado likes to play a lot of their games. So if this game gets into a counterattack, you do worry about it a little bit. At times, you wonder if the game's going to get too fast for the center backs, where we've seen Jacob Glesnes make mistakes here the last couple games because of the speed of the game, in my opinion. But if the Union can get out there on the front foot first and score, I think they'll really slow this game down and have opportunities to get multiple goals in this game. Real quick, though, I was telling you guys earlier, there's a ton of players out for Colorado in this game. They have 6 players listed as out on their injury report, and Keegan Rosenberry is listed as questionable. And so for Union fans that wanted to give Keegan a warm welcome back, there's a chance that you guys do not get that opportunity. But Jack Price, that's a huge loss for them in the midfield. He can play as a center back. He's out with a upper body injury. He's played 14 games so far this season with Colorado. And everybody else on this list that's listed as out, they've either played 0 games or they've only played 5 games. So it's not worth it, in my opinion, to talk about all the other players that are out since they haven't contributed to Colorado this season. But if we go ahead and look at the head-to-head meeting between Philadelphia and Colorado, they've played a total of 12 times, with the Union going 2-4-6 in those meetings. The Union and Colorado have played 7 times at Subaru Park, with Union going 1-2-4, with the lone win coming in 2017, in which CJ Sapong and Harris Medunian were both on the score sheet for a 2-1 Union victory. Like I told you guys in the intro, the last time these two teams met in Subaru Park was in 2019, when Connor Casey was the interim manager for Colorado, and that game ended 1-1 with a Sergio Santos goal. Now, this game, like I mentioned too, midway through the podcast or whenever I mentioned it, it really is a game that scares me a little bit. Where you look at the series history between these two teams, Colorado isn't great on the road this season. And I told you guys, I worry about the Union playing down to their opponent. And again, it's only happened once this season against Chicago. William Yarbrough is not a great goalkeeper. And so you guys are probably like, well, why are you worried? I don't know. It's just something where you expect the Union to win, and then it just doesn't happen at all. And again, I know that hasn't happened, but I know there's some of you guys out there that probably feel this way too, where, yeah, you feel confident that the Union should win. The Union haven't really played down to their opponents this season, but you guys are haunted by the memories of Union teams of the past where they've done exactly that. And Jim Curtin was asked about it today, where, how do you get your team to not play down to a team that's outside of the playoffs?
You're always trying to set your guys up and battling against the letdown. That's the hardest thing, especially when we sit in a good spot. And our motivation should be to win the Eastern Conference. I think that should be the end of the sentence there. That should be our 100% our motivation. But I think we all know human nature. When you see yourself in and around that red line, it only adds more urgency to your game. And I've warned our guys, every team we play for the rest of the way is fighting in and around that red line. And that's a real challenge for us. And it makes the games that much harder. We haven't clinched the playoffs yet, but I think we are put ourselves in a good spot. But we're not just satisfied with that. We want to try to win the conference. That's our goal. And again, all these games become a lot more tough when those teams have that desperation and that little bit extra. So certainly that's on our radar. It's something that we're trying to guard against. And if you get comfortable and complacent against a team maybe like a Colorado that you don't know as well. They have incredible attacking weapons. They're really organized. And like you said, they need 3 points. So they can throw extra bodies forward at the end of the game as an example and try to push a tie into a win. So you have to be able to navigate and manage those situations and also try and take as many points as we can.
And I think that's a great transition into my 3 keys to the game. And number 1, it's a fast start / set the tempo. Because, like I mentioned, Colorado, they've given up 40 goals this season, with 23 of those goals conceded in the first half, with 5 of those 23 coming in the first 10 minutes of the game. And we've seen the Union this season score 6 goals in the first 10 minutes of games. So you've got to get at Colorado early. Jim Curtin talked about it in that clip I played you guys, where he doesn't want this to be an end-to-end game. They have players that can hurt you. But for the Union to make Colorado uncomfortable, they've got to have a fast start. Because Colorado do have talented players. And the longer that Colorado are in this game, they're going to have belief. And I say it all the time. If the Union only go into the half up by 1-0, or if the game's tied, then that gives the opposition complete belief that they're still in this game. And I get it. I know the Union are still undefeated at home. But if you don't want this game going end to end, if you don't want Colorado taking chances, putting men forward, having you outnumbered, you've got to score a goal within the first 10 minutes of this game, first 20 minutes of this game. You've got to get on top of Colorado early on. Number 2, I don't have to read you guys the stats anymore. You got to test Yarbrough, terrible goalkeeper this season. And number 3, contain Diego Rubio. Colorado has scored 14 goals on the road this season, like I mentioned, with Diego Rubio scoring in 4 of those matches. Colorado's record when Diego scores, they are 1-2-1. And so teams have found, okay, we want to be successful when Colorado come to us. Shut out Diego Rubio, because if it's not Diego scoring, then who is it? Yes, Jossie has 7 goals, like I mentioned. But really, you shut both of those guys out, then Colorado aren't getting goal contributions from a lot of players. Yes, they have players on the wings that can hurt you on the counterattack, but they're not the best finishers. Yes, they create chances, but if Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes do a good job man marking, staying close to Rubio and Zardes, I think the Union are going to be in line for 3 points this weekend. And yeah, that's what we hope, that the Union can continue to build that lead in the Eastern Conference, that they can try to close the gap and get closer to LAFC, so the Union could try to win the Supporters Shield this season. But yeah, those are my 3 keys. Those are my predictions for this match. And these are my breakdown of what I expect Colorado to do, how they played this season. And hopefully I did a good job getting you guys ready for this game. But as always, if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the website, thefreekick.net. I hope to have a match preview up for you guys on the website on either Friday or Saturday, probably Saturday, the day of the game. That's usually how I've been doing them this season, or the last couple of weeks, I should say. But again, the match preview is probably going to be a lot of what I just talked about on this podcast, so you guys might not want to go ahead and read that. But if you guys do, I always appreciate the clicks, the support on the website. And again, don't forget, this Sunday at 8 p.m. live on Twitter Spaces for episode 200. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.